Hey, before you get comfortable tonight, I need you to do something. Look around the room you're sitting in right now. Warm lighting, a couch that doesn't bite back, a phone in your hand that contains the entirety of human knowledge, a bathroom with a door, a lock, privacy. You live better than 99% of every human being who has ever existed on this planet. And I'm not saying that to make you feel good. I'm saying that to make what comes next hit harder. Because tonight we're going back, way back, to a world where life expectancy was 35, a bad tooth could kill you, and the guy cutting your hair was also performing surgery. Welcome to medieval Europe. Not the version with noble knights and fairy tale castles. The real version. The version that smelled like death, tasted like despair, and lasted for over 1,000 years. Let's begin. Take a breath. You'll want to enjoy it. Chapter 1. Waking up in 1325, 1 o'clock to 4:30. Congratulations, you've woken up. That alone is an achievement because roughly 1 in 4 children in medieval Europe didn't make it past the age of 5. You beat the odds. You're alive. Barely, but alive. You open your eyes to a ceiling of rotting thatch, damp, gray, low enough that if you stood on your tiptoes, you'd brush it with your fingers. Outside, a church bell slams into the morning like God's own alarm clock. No snooze button, no mercy. Just a hollow iron clang telling you that another day of misery has officially begun. You're lying on a straw mattress. And I use the word mattress the way you'd call a puddle a swimming pool. It's a cloth sack stuffed with old straw, dry hay, and the dreams of every flea that has ever lived and died in this building, which is a lot of fleas. There are no pillows. There are no sheets. There is one wool blanket, unwashed since autumn, that now weighs roughly the same as a golden retriever from the sheer volume of absorbed sweat, grime, and despair baked into its fibers. Your home is a single room, one room for everything, sleeping, cooking, arguing, grieving, dying. It's about the size of a modern walk-in closet, and tonight it contains your parents, your 3 siblings, a baby who has been crying since Tuesday, 1 goat, 2 chickens, and a dog that doesn't belong to anyone but hasn't left in 6 months. The smell hits you before you're even fully awake. Animal dung, smoke from a fire that never fully burned last night, sour ale, something wet you can't identify, the faint but unmistakable sweetness of rot. You're 23 years old, which in the Middle Ages is what we'd call middle-aged. Your knees creak when you move. Your lower back aches like someone drove a stake through it while you slept. Your skin is dry, cracked, and currently hosting a thriving community of lice that have been with you so long, you've given up thinking of them as visitors. They live here. You're just the landlord. You swing your legs over the side of the straw sack and put your bare feet on the floor, which is dirt, literally just earth, and it's wet from the rain that leaked through the roof last night. A chicken stares at you. Welcome to Tuesday, 1325. Chapter 2. The bathroom, 4:30 to 8. Now you need to use the bathroom. And right now is where I need you to fully appreciate what you have. There is no bathroom. There is no toilet paper, no sink, no hot water, no cold water, no plumbing of any kind. What you have, if you're lucky, is a wooden bucket in the corner of the room. The same room where your family sleeps. The same room where you cook your food. The same bucket that has been used by at least 6 people since it was last emptied, which was yesterday, and only because someone finally couldn't take the smell anymore. In towns, you walk outside and dump it. Out the window, if you're on an upper floor. You're supposed to shout "Gardez-vous," Old French for "watch out below," before launching your family's waste into the street. But honestly, most people don't bother. They just throw it down into the narrow cobblestone lanes already thick with horse manure, rotting food scraps, dead animals, and every other form of human and animal waste that has accumulated since the street was last cleaned, which is to say, never. Medieval city streets are not streets. They are rivers, rivers of filth. You've heard of the Black Death, right? The plague that wiped out over 1/3 of Europe's population in the mid-1300s? Here's something nobody tells you. Those rats carrying the plague-infected fleas? They weren't invaders. They were residents. They lived in the walls of your home, in your grain stores, in the same straw you slept on. The medieval city was a perfectly engineered disease machine, and no one even knew it. But back to the bathroom situation. If you live in a castle, and you don't, but let's say you do, you have access to a garderobe, which is a hole cut into the outer wall of the castle that drops directly into the moat below. Yes, the moat. The same moat meant to protect the castle from enemies. The same moat that now also functions as a sewage lagoon. And you know what's truly remarkable? Enemy soldiers sometimes use the garderobe shaft to sneak inside the castle during sieges. They climbed up through the waste chute for military advantage. Let that sink in for a second. As for toilet paper, nothing. You wipe with whatever you have: straw, hay, moss, leaves, old rags, sometimes just your hand, which is why the custom of extending your right hand for a handshake originated. The right hand was your eating hand. The left hand was your other hand. People understood. No one explained. No one had to.
Chapter 3, Breakfast, 8 to 12. You survived the morning ritual. Time to eat. And I want you to picture your ideal breakfast right now. Whatever it is. Eggs and bacon, avocado toast, a bowl of Lucky Charms while you watch YouTube, a gas station burrito you're somehow still loyal to. Whatever it is, hold on to that image, because you don't have it. What you have is pottage. Pottage is a thick, gray, heavy stew that's been simmering in the same iron pot for somewhere between 3 days and 3 weeks, depending on when you last cleaned it. And the answer is, you haven't. New ingredients get added to the old ones. Onions go in on top of last week's barley. Cabbage joins the decomposing turnips. Bean water mingles with whatever was left clinging to the pot from the previous batch. It's not a recipe, it's a civilization, a slow-cooking civilization of grim nutrition. On the side, you get bread. Now, this isn't bread like you're thinking. This isn't a soft brioche roll or a warm sourdough loaf from a Brooklyn bakery. This is a dense, gray, tooth-cracking slab of coarse barley or rye that has been cut with sawdust, ground acorns, pea flour, or whatever was available to bulk it up. This bread is used as a plate, a trencher, they called it. A thick slice of stale bread that catches your stew. After the meal, you eat the plate, or feed it to the dog, or both. You wash it down with ale. Yes, ale. At 6 in the morning, because the water will kill you, not metaphorically, literally. And ale, being boiled in the brewing process, is one of the only liquids you can safely drink. It's low in alcohol. Your children drink it too. Your toddler has ale with breakfast, not because anyone thinks this is ideal, because the alternative is dysentery. Now, meat. You want to know about meat? Meat is for feast days, for saints' days, for the occasional pig slaughter in November, which is the highlight of your entire agricultural year. The rest of the time, you are surviving on grain and vegetables and prayers. Fish is permitted on religious fasting days, which is actually somewhat regular. Fridays, certain Wednesdays, Lent. But fish often means the cheapest, saltiest, most aggressively preserved salted cod that has been sitting in barrels for months. Spices. You know how in movies, medieval merchants are always making huge deals over spice routes and pepper trades? That's because a small bag of black pepper could cost more than your monthly wages. Salt was valuable enough to be locked up. The phrase, "not worth his salt," comes from Roman times when soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. That's how precious it was. You eat your grim gray pottage, you gnaw your sawdust bread, you drink your morning ale, and then you go to work for 12 hours in the rain. Chapter 4, Clothing and Hygiene, 12 to 16. Before you head out, let's talk about what you're wearing. You own one outfit, not one outfit per day. One outfit total. A rough wool tunic, maybe a linen undershirt if you're doing well financially, a belt and some kind of leg covering, wool hose tied at the waist with a string. No buttons yet. Those were a luxury. No zippers, no elastic, just layers of scratchy, unwashed, slowly disintegrating cloth. This outfit has not been washed in several months. And I don't mean it could use a wash. I mean it has accumulated the biological record of your entire recent life. Every workday in the fields, every night by the smoky fire, every illness sweated out under that wool blanket, every meal that dripped, every animal you handled, every time you couldn't make it to the bucket in time. It's all there, fossilized into the fabric. Washing clothes in the Middle Ages is an entire day's labor. You haul water from a river or well, which is already exhausting. You heat it over a fire. You scrub the garments against a board using lye, which is made from wood ash and water and is caustic enough to damage your skin if you're not careful. You rinse, you wring, you hang them in weather that is usually cold and damp. By the time the clothes are clean, you're too exhausted to wear them anywhere. Most people don't bother. Shoes. If you own them, and many peasants don't, they're thin leather soles, poorly stitched, with no arch support, no cushioning. Nothing between your foot and the medieval earth except a few millimeters of animal hide. Your feet are constantly wet, constantly cold, and constantly navigating terrain that includes sharp rocks, animal waste, and the occasional discarded tool. Many peasants go barefoot. Now, the lice.
Here's something that will stay with you. Archaeologists examining medieval skeletons have found evidence that a significant percentage of the population had severe bone damage from the larvae of parasitic flies, infections that began in open wounds and migrated into the body. These people were walking around working, going to church, with fly larvae living inside them. And they had no idea, because the germ theory of disease won't be discovered for another 5 centuries. Schon. Chapter 5. Work, 1600 to 1930. Now you work. You are, in all statistical likelihood, a peasant. Roughly 90% of medieval Europe's population worked the land. Not their land, their lord's land. You are a serf, or a villain, legally bound to the manor you were born on. You can't leave without permission. You can't marry without permission. When you die, your lord has rights to a portion of your estate, your handful of tools, your single goat, your sad pile of turnips. In exchange, you receive protection, which mostly means when raiders come and burn your village, they only burn it a little. Your tools are a wooden plow, iron-tipped if you're fortunate enough to have access to the blacksmiths, a hand sickle, a hoe, and your own body. You don't own an ox. Oxen are expensive. You and your neighbors may be pooled together to share one and schedule its use like a medieval carpool. Some families just harness themselves to the plow. Humans pulling plows, because the alternative is not eating. Planting season, harvest season. Those aren't just seasons. They're emergencies. If you don't plant at the exact right time, you don't eat. If rain or drought or a late frost hits at the wrong moment, you don't eat. If the Lord takes too large a portion of your harvest as taxes, which he will, you don't eat. One bad harvest means genuine starvation. Not we're watching our budget. Not dinner was smaller than usual. Starvation, children dying, elderly parents choosing not to eat so their grandchildren can. The Great Famine of 1315 to 1322, just a few years before our story, killed somewhere between 10 and 25% of Europe's population. That's 1 in 4 to 5 people, dead of starvation. In living memory of the people walking around in 1325, you work from sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. Sunday is rest. The church mandates it. But rest often means attending mandatory mass, performing maintenance on your home, and doing chores that don't count as real work because they're indoors. If you're a woman, you also work the fields, and then you come home and cook, clean, spin, sew, manage the household animals, care for the children, and tend to whatever's dying, animal, vegetable, or family member. Women in medieval Europe didn't have less work. They had more, plus the full reproductive burden of a world with no birth control, where infant mortality ran around 30 to 40%. The average medieval woman who survived to adulthood could expect to be pregnant or nursing for a significant portion of her life. Children begin working around age 5. Not in a cute, carrying vegetables, this is so wholesome way. In a real way, carrying, fetching, watching animals, weeding, helping. School is a distant fantasy reserved for the very few. Monks, the occasional merchant's son, certainly no daughters. Most medieval peasants die without ever learning to read a single word. Chapter 6. Medicine, 1930 to 2330. Now you get sick, and in the Middle Ages, getting sick is almost always your fault. Not medically your fault, morally your fault. Because disease, according to prevailing medieval medical and theological thought, is either caused by an imbalance in your four humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, or it's God punishing you for something you did, or both, usually both. Let's start with the science such as it is. If you walk into a medieval physician's office and only the wealthy ever saw an actual physician, everyone else went to the barber, the local healer, or prayed and hoped. The first thing the doctor does is examine your urine. He holds it up to the light. He examines the color, the clarity, the smell, sometimes the taste. This is called uroscopy, and it is the foundational medical diagnostic technique of the era. If your pee looks wrong, the cure usually involves bleeding you. Bloodletting. This is the treatment for almost everything. Fever, drain some blood. Headache, drain some blood. Plague symptoms, drain some blood. The logic is that excess blood is causing the imbalance, and removing it will restore equilibrium. The method is a sharp lancet cut into a vein, usually in the arm or neck, draining blood into a bowl. Performed by a barber, the red and white striped pole outside barbershops today is a direct descendant of this practice. The red stripe representing blood, the white representing the bandage. The result of bloodletting in a sick person who is already weak and dehydrated is almost always. They get worse. Leeches were also deployed, dozens at a time placed on specific locations of the body, allowed to engorge on blood. Leeches at least have mild anticoagulant properties. Modern medicine actually uses medical-grade leeches for certain procedures. Medieval leeching, though, was often performed with whatever you could scoop from the nearest pond. For broken bones, you have bone setters, untrained, unlicensed, working from tradition rather than anatomy. The bone will be set and splinted, which if done well, can actually heal reasonably. If done badly, and which is most of the time, you heal crooked or develop an infection, or the limb is amputated. Amputation, without anesthesia. I want you to sit with that for a moment. A saw, a wooden table, someone holding you down, cauterization with a hot iron to seal the wound, screaming. If you were very wealthy, you might be given opium, imported at tremendous expense, available only to the powerful. Otherwise, you were given wine to drink and told to grip something. Some accounts suggest patients were given a wooden stick to bite on and then simply held down by as many assistants as were available. The survival rate from medieval amputation ranged dramatically based on the era, the surgeon's skill, and whether infection set in afterward. Infection was the killer, and without antibiotics, infections that we would treat today with a 3-day course of pills regularly became sepsis and killed people in days. The Black Death, bubonic plague, arrives in Europe in 1347. The years around our 1325 story are its approach. And when it hits, physicians have no idea what it is. They know it spreads. They know it kills. The best they come up with is that it's carried by miasma, bad air. The treatment? Burn aromatic herbs to clean the air. Carry flowers to mask the smell of death. Some doctors wore the now famous beaked masks. The beak was stuffed with dried flowers and herbs, meant to filter out the miasma. They were wrong about how it spread. But terrifyingly, the isolation protocols they sometimes implemented, quarantine, actually comes from the Italian word for 40, 40 giorni, 40 days of isolation. Those worked. Not because they understood why, but because keeping the sick away from the healthy worked regardless of whether you understood germ theory. Chapter 7. Religion, Fear, and Control. 2330 to 2630. Let's talk about the thing that controlled every single aspect of medieval life. Not the king, not the Lord, the church. The Catholic Church in medieval Europe wasn't just a religious institution. It was the government, the education system, the social safety net, the legal system, and the media, all at once. There was no separating church and state because the state was the church. Kings claimed their power came from God. Popes could excommunicate kings, essentially declaring them spiritually dead, releasing their subjects from any obligation to obey them. This is not metaphor. This actually happened multiple times. You went to Mass every Sunday. You paid tithes, 10% of your income, already a fraction of subsistence, to the church. Your birth was recorded there. Your marriage happened there. Your death was handled there. And the church had one tool it used to keep 90% of the population in line: fear of hell. Not vague, uncomfortable fear. Specific, architectural, detailed fear. Medieval churches were covered in paintings and carvings of hell. Demons with hooks dragging the screaming damned into pits of fire. Specific punishments for specific sins. The glutton force-fed burning coals. The lustful covered in fire and brimstone. The proud bound to a wheel spinning forever. These weren't decorations. They were instructional. You couldn't read, but you could see. And what you saw every Sunday, every funeral, every baptism was what would happen to you if you disobeyed. And disobedience was broadly defined. Heresy, believing the wrong thing, or questioning church doctrine, was a capital offense. Not just